All right, so if we're gonna go through muscle energy techniques to correct a sacral torsion, the thought process here is sacral torsions are pretty universally going to be caused by motor imbalances through the lumbopelvic mechanism. So we may have a situation where the SI joint is fixated as a result of this torsion, and we have to do a manipulation in order to free up that collagenous matrix of the intra-articular ligament. We have to do that just to free the joint up to allow adequate motion. But if we don't then, at some point, go in and do a muscle energy technique to correct the motor imbalance, we're only treating this with half measures. Okay, so a couple of different things here. So if we're dealing with, on Michelle, we had a right-sided issue where the right innominate wouldn't rotate very well posteriorly, at least via our kinetic tests. In truth, when we were looking at this with our passive mobility tests, the joint actually moved pretty well, which could, in theory, suggest that the sacrum is being held in a torsional position, right? And that's more of a neuromuscular issue that's affecting the movement with our standing and prone kinetic tests. What would be suggested here, if we can't posteriorly rotate, would essentially mean that the sacral base on her right side would have to be posterior. Okay? Relatively, that would mean that the innominate is anterior in relationship to that. So this is a technique, a muscle energy technique to correct in this situation, it would be a right on left, backward sacral torsion. Okay? I'm gonna have you roll onto your side and scooch toward me. Okay, and the setup's gonna be very similar to what we did with our specific posterior rotational manipulation that we just did. In fact, it's almost identical. What we wanna do, if we have a backward sacral torsion here, right, on this right side, we wanna take this and position her spine to decompensate that torsion, okay? So if I need the sacral base to go anteriorly, I have to take her into lumbar extension. That will take the sacral base anteriorly, right? Are you okay with that? Okay. We also then want to take the spine and rotate it to the left, right? Right on left means that it's facing right.
Can you do the clipboard?
Not right now, not while we're videotaping. So it's facing toward her right, so we need to rotate her to the left. Okay, so to do that, we're going to put her left arm behind her, right? And that's going to rotate the spine to the left. Okay? After that, we want to bias the pelvis to rotate posteriorly. Okay, so we're going to get a little bit of straightening of that bottom leg, and we're going to bring the knee up to bias a posterior rotation of the innominate relative to that sacral base. Okay, so very similar to the setup that we just had. The only thing that I did differently is I first biased her into lumbar extension. Okay, everything else is the same. Okay, so to produce the muscle energy technique, my cradle grip is the same. Right hand is going to go up against the ASIS. Left hand is going to come across the posterior elements of the innominate here. I'm going to posteriorly rotate her till I find my barrier. And then what I'm going to have her do as the muscle component of this, I'm going to ask her to push her right knee into my hip. Let her hold for 2-3 seconds, relax, and then I take up slack. Okay? Push into my hip, relax, take up slack.
This is right on left.
Right on left, backward sacral torsion. Yes, one more time, little push, and relax. Good, and we just continue to do that until we get no more, there's no slack left to take up. Okay, so it may be 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 repetitions of that, holding each contraction for 2 to 3 seconds. Okay, so, I don't know who stole my clipboard, but the idea is,
Here you go.
did you guys. I knew it was you guys.
Still too.
So what we have is left oblique axis, right? Starting up here. So we have this initially, facing to the right on the left axis. So I want to take this sacral base and I want to bring it forward. I want to do everything I can to bring it forward. So I take her into lumbar extension. That brings that forward. I rotate her trunk to the left. That brings that forward. Now I take the innominate and I rotate that posteriorly. Again, relatively bringing that forward. Okay, and then as I resist, I'm using the hip flexors here to again pull that forward. Okay.